You know, usually when we talk about a legal contract or like a constitution or really any foundational set of rules, there is this deep inherent expectation of permanence.
Right, yeah, like it's carved in stone.
Exactly. Like you sign a lease, it says no pets, and, that is that. It's written in black and white. It is the absolute bedrock of your agreement with reality.
It's binding. I mean, it sets the boundaries of your lived experience within that framework. You don't have to wake up every single day and wonder what the rules are.
Right. It's clean, it's comforting. But I mean, imagine for a second that you wake up a few months later, you look at that exact same lease on your desk, and the ink has somehow shifted.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Now it says no pets unless they're cats. And you blink, you rub your eyes, and you just think, wait, was that always there? Am I losing my mind? Did I just misremember the foundational rule of my own house?
That is a profoundly unsettling feeling. Because when the foundational rules of your reality start slipping, and, like, worse, when the people in charge look you in the eye and tell you it has always been that way, I mean, it is the absolute definition of psychological muddy waters.
Yeah, completely.
It's not just a physical threat at that point. It is an assault on your own memory, on your cognition.
And that, my friends, is exactly the treacherous, shifting landscape we are stepping into today. Welcome back to the Bibliophile channel, where we take the greatest works of literature, tear them down to the studs, and figure out how they are built and why they still matter so much.
And we really do have a monumental task ahead of us today.
We do. And hey, if you are joining us, yes, you listening right now, do us a huge favor. Like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts or ideas as we go, and please subscribe to the channel so you absolutely do not miss our next deep dive.
Because this text, I mean, it has fundamentally shaped the way modern society understands power, and propaganda and truth.
Absolutely. Our mission for this deep dive is to fully describe and completely unpack all the details, from the very first spark of rebellion to the bitter, chilling end of a true literary classic. We are exploring George Orwell's masterpiece, Animal Farm.
First published in 1944.
Right. And listen, if you're familiar with the book from middle school, wipe the slate clean. We aren't just giving you a plot summary today. We are doing a complete roundup exploration of the events, the incredible cast of characters, and the deep underlying philosophy.
Yeah, because it's one of the most brilliant dissections of political mechanics ever written. It is a text that reveals more of itself the closer you look.
It really is.
It's deceptively simple on the surface, but underneath, it's a terrifyingly accurate blueprint of how democracies crumble and dictatorships rise.
So let's set the scene for you. We find ourselves in the English countryside at a place called Manor Farm. And right off the bat, we need to establish that this is not like a happy, idyllic pastoral setting.
No, not at all.
This isn't a farm running at peak efficiency.
Far from it. I mean, Manor Farm is run by Mr. Jones. And it's crucial to understand that Mr. Jones is not some evil mastermind plotting the eternal torment of his animals.
Right.
He is, frankly, just an incompetent, neglectful, and heavily drinking farmer. The system he runs is failing.
Yeah, the story literally opens on a night where he is simply too drunk to remember to shut the pop holes on the hen houses before he lurches up to bed.
Exactly. It's that everyday bureaucratic negligence. It's the manager who doesn't care about the workers, who extracts value without providing security.
But as soon as his bedroom light goes out, the farm completely transforms. The silence is broken by the secret midnight meeting in the big barn.
Because word has been passed around all day that Old Major wishes to speak to everyone.
And Old Major is, he's a prize middle white boar. He's 12 years old, quite stout, but still very majestic looking.
His exhibition name, interestingly, was Willingdon Beauty.
Which is such a great detail.
Right. He is essentially the elder statesman of the farm, widely respected by every animal there.
So let's unpack Old Major for a second, because he sets the philosophical foundation for everything that follows. He feels very much to me like a retiring CEO, or maybe, an aging visionary philosopher leaving behind his magnum opus.
Definitive manifesto.
Yeah. He knows his life is coming to an end, and he wants to impart a radical new way of seeing the world. And I want to ask you about his specific rhetorical strategy here.
Okay.
Because Major doesn't just say, Mr. Jones is a bad boss, let's ask for better working conditions. He sets up man as the ultimate unforgivable parasite. How does he construct that argument?
What's fascinating here is how methodical and sweeping Old Major's argument is. He is building a complete economic and philosophical worldview from scratch.
Right.
He starts by asking the animals to face the brutal reality of their existence. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He says, the life of an animal is misery and slavery. That is the plain truth.
Yeah, he says they are born, given only enough food to keep the breath in their bodies, and forced to work to the absolute last atom of their strength.
And the very instant their usefulness comes to an end, they are slaughtered with hideous cruelty.
He explicitly says no animal in England knows the meaning of happiness or leisure after a year old. It's a total systemic condemnation.
Exactly. But then he asks the critical, inciting question. He says, is this just the order of nature? Is the land of England simply too poor to support those who dwell upon it?
And his answer is a resounding no.
Right. He says the soil is fertile, the climate is good. Manor Farm alone could support dozens of horses, cows, and sheep in a level of comfort and dignity that is almost beyond their imagining.
So as a listener, you have to wonder if the resources are there and the labor is there, what does this all mean? Like, where is all the wealth actually going?
And that is the pivot. He points the finger squarely at human beings. He says nearly the whole produce of their labor is stolen from them by humans. Man is the only real enemy.
As Major puts it with brilliant simplicity, man is the only creature that consumes without producing.
Think about the mechanics of that. Man doesn't give milk. He doesn't lay eggs. He's too weak to pull the plow. He can't run fast enough to catch rabbits. Yet somehow he is lord of all the animals.
It's a really powerful economic indictment. Major highlights the sheer absurdity of the power dynamic.
He does. He looks out at the cows and asks them to calculate how many thousands of gallons of milk have gone down the throats of their enemies instead of rearing sturdy calves.
Yeah, and he looks at the hens and talks about the thousands of eggs that have gone to market to bring in money for Jones and his men.
And then he turns to Boxer,
Oh, man, Boxer.
the massive, incredibly strong, loyal cart horse. And he delivers this chilling prophecy. He warns Boxer that the very day his great muscles lose their power, Jones will sell him to the knacker.
To the horse slaughterer, to be boiled down for the foxhounds, which we need to put a pin in that for later.
Definitely. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, Major is defining a strict, unyielding binary. There is no middle ground. He tells them all the evils of this life spring from the tyranny of human beings.
So the solution, therefore, is crystal clear and inescapable. Rebellion. Overthrow the human race. Wipe the slate clean.
But the brilliance of Major's speech isn't just the call to action. It's the guardrails he tries to put up. He gives them a very specific, dire warning about what happens after the rebellion, doesn't he?
He does, and you could argue this is the most important part of his entire speech, the part that really haunts the entire narrative. He says that in fighting man, they must never come to resemble him.
Do not adopt the vices of the oppressor.
Precisely. If you overthrow the tyrant, you cannot step into the tyrant's shoes. He lays out strict physical rules that represent moral boundaries.
Right. No animal must ever live in a house or sleep in a bed or wear clothes or drink alcohol or smoke tobacco or touch money or engage in trade.
Basically, all the habits of man are fundamentally evil, and above all, no animal must ever tyrannize over his own kind. Weak or strong, clever or simple, they are all brothers. All animals are equal.
All animals are equal. That is the core tenet, the absolute foundation of what will become their society.
And it's right after this heavy philosophical speech that Major does something incredibly shrewd. He doesn't just leave them with a lecture, he gives them an emotional anchor. He teaches them a song.
This is the spark that really lights the fire.
Yeah.
The song is called Beasts of England. Major claims it's an old song from his childhood, a song long forgotten, the words of which came back to him in a dream.
And the musicality is so interesting. Our sources note the tune is described as being somewhere between Clementine and La Cucaracha.
Which is a fascinating detail.
It makes it sound so folksy, so rhythmic, and deeply infectious. It's not a complex highbrow symphony. It's a worker's anthem designed to get stuck in your head.
And it acts almost like a mimetic virus. It is instantly infectious. The lyrics paint this incredibly vivid utopian picture of a golden future time when tyrant man shall be finally overthrown.
It bypasses intellectual argument and goes straight to emotional yearning.
Exactly. It talks about rings vanishing from their noses, harnesses falling from their backs, the cruel whips being broken forever. It promises that wheat, barley, oats, and hay will be theirs alone.
The effect it has on the animals is instantaneous and physical. It throws them into the wildest state of excitement.
Even the stupidest animals pick up the tune and a few of the words, while the clever ones, specifically the pigs and the dogs, memorize the entire thing in minutes.
Then, spontaneously, they all sing it together. They sing it 5 times in succession, all the different animals joining in with their own voices.
The cows are lowing it, the ducks are quacking it, the sheep are bleating it.
It's this moment of profound, intoxicating unity. But that unity is abruptly interrupted by cold reality. The sheer noise wakes Mr. Jones,
He assumes there's a fox in the yard, grabs his gun, and fires a charge of number 6 shots straight into the darkness, embedding the pellets in the barn wall.
which scatters the meeting instantly in terror. Everyone flees to their sleeping places. But it's too late, isn't it?
It is. The seed of rebellion has been planted deeply in their minds.
And 3 nights later, old Major dies peacefully in his sleep. He never sees the revolution. But he has fundamentally changed the psychological landscape of the farm.
The animals can no longer unsee the injustice they live in.
Right.
He has given them a new lens through which to view their suffering. His speech gave the more intelligent animals a completely new, radical outlook on life.
Now, they don't know when the rebellion will happen. They honestly think it might not even be in their own lifetimes, but they see it as their absolute sacred duty to prepare for it.
And the intellectual heavy lifting, the actual preparation, falls naturally to the pigs. They were generally recognized as being the cleverest of the animals.
Yes. And specifically, 3 pigs emerge from the ranks as leaders. First, there's Snowball.
Snowball is vivacious, quick in speech, very inventive, and highly energetic. He's the ideas guy.
Then there's Napoleon. Napoleon is a large, fierce-looking Berkshire boar. He is not much of a talker, but he has a very distinct reputation for getting his own way.
I love that character note. A
Mm.
reputation for getting his own way. It's so ominous.
Right. It tells you he operates on a completely different axis of power than Snowball. Snowball wins you over, Napoleon wears you down or maneuvers around you.
It tells you everything you need to know about his approach to politics. And then, crucially, there is Squealer.
Oh, Squealer.
Squealer is a brilliant, tireless talker. He has very round cheeks, twinkling eyes, nimble movements, and a shrill voice. When he argues a difficult point, he has this habit of skipping from side to side and whisking his tail, which somehow makes him highly persuasive.
The other animals have a saying about Squealer. They say he could turn black into white.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and where we see the mechanics of ideology forming. These 3 pigs take Old Major's overarching speech and distill it into a complete, formal philosophical system.
They name it animalism.
They start holding secret meetings a few nights a week to expound the principles of animalism to the others. But if you think everyone is just going to jump on board, you'd be wrong.
It is a really tough sell at first.
It's incredibly difficult. They run into a massive wall of apathy, fear, and deeply ingrained subservience. When you've been institutionalized your whole life, freedom is terrifying.
Some animals talk about their duty of loyalty to Mr. Jones, actually referring to him as master.
Others fall back on pure, cynical pragmatism, saying, Mr. Jones feeds us. If he were gone, we should starve to death.
Or they ask, why should we care what happens after we are dead? Which, if we are being honest, is a completely understandable reaction if you're a tired, overworked, starving animal just trying to survive until tomorrow.
Absolutely. And then you have characters like Molly, who represent a totally different kind of resistance.
Molly is the foolish, pretty white mare who pulls Mr. Jones's trap. Her concerns are entirely superficial and material. She doesn't care about the philosophy of labor.
Her very first question to Snowball is, will there still be sugar after the rebellion?
And then she immediately wants to know if she will still be allowed to wear ribbons in her mane.
And Snowball is very rigid, very ideologically strict about it. He tells her absolutely no sugar and that ribbons are the badge of slavery. He tries to explain that liberty is worth more than ribbons.
But you can tell, looking at Molly, that she isn't entirely convinced. She likes her comforts more than she likes abstract concepts of freedom.
The pigs also have to contend with an active counter-narrative spread by Moses, the tame raven.
Moses is a special pet of Mr. Jones, a spy, a talebearer, but also a very clever talker.
He claims to know of the existence of a mysterious country called Sugar Candy Mountain, to which all animals go when they die. He describes it as being situated somewhere up in the sky, a little distance beyond the clouds.
In Sugar Candy Mountain, it is Sunday, 7 days a week, clover is in season all year round, and lump sugar and linseed cake grow right on the hedges.
He is literally selling them pie in the sky.
Yeah, it's a religious pacifier designed to keep them docile and accepting of their current misery because their reward will come in the afterlife.
Exactly. The pigs have to argue very hard to persuade the animals that there is no such place, that they need to focus on improving their material conditions in the here and now.
But amidst all this resistance, they do find 2 very faithful, unshakable disciples. The 2 cart horses, Boxer and Clover.
Now, these two have great difficulty thinking anything out for themselves. They aren't intellectuals.
But once they accept the pigs as their teachers, they absorb everything blindly, and they pass it on by simple, repetitive arguments to the other animals.
Which brings us to the actual uprising. You watch movies or read history books, and you expect a revolution to be this highly choreographed, deeply strategic event with a set date and time.
Right, but the uprising on Manor Farm happens almost by accident. It is triggered way earlier and is much easier than anyone ever anticipated.
It's not driven by philosophical awakening in the moment. It is driven by pure, visceral, desperate necessity. By June, Mr. Jones has fallen on evil days.
He lost a great deal of money in a lawsuit and has completely lost heart.
He is taken to drinking heavily. He lounges in his Windsor chair in the kitchen for days on end, reading the paper, drinking, and feeding Moses crusts of bread soaked in beer.
His men have become idle and dishonest. The fields are choked with weeds. The buildings want roofing. And worst of all, the animals are being systematically underfed.
It all comes to a boiling point on Midsummer's Eve, which happens to be a Saturday. Jones goes into the village, visits the Red Lion pub, gets completely blackout drunk, and doesn't come back until Sunday midday.
His men had milked the cows early in the morning and then gone out rabbiting, totally neglecting to feed the animals.
By the time evening approaches, the animals have been starving for over 24 hours. They literally cannot physically stand it anymore.
The system has collapsed.
One of the cows finally breaks in the door of the store shed with her horn, and the starving animals begin helping themselves from the grain bins.
The noise wakes up Mr. Jones. He and his 4 men immediately rush into the shed, armed with whips, and they just start lashing out in all directions.
And that is the absolute breaking point. It's the snap of the rubber band. With one accord, completely unplanned and uncoordinated, the hungry, desperate animals fling themselves on their tormentors.
Jones and his men suddenly find themselves being butted and kicked from all sides. The animals lose their fear.
The men have never seen them behave like this before. The sudden uprising of creatures they are used to thrashing and maltreating just frightens them out of their wits.
Within moments, the power dynamic inverts. The men realize they are physically outmatched.
They give up trying to defend themselves and take to their heels. They flee down the cart track that leads to the main road, with the animals pursuing them in absolute triumph.
Mrs. Jones looks out the bedroom window, sees what is happening, hastily flings some possessions into a carpet bag, and slips out of the farm by another way, with Moses the raven flapping after her, croaking loudly.
The animals chase the men right off the property and slam the 5-barred gate behind them.
Just like that, in a matter of minutes, the rebellion has been successfully carried through. Jones is expelled. Manor Farm belongs to the animals.
Their first reaction is profound shock, almost disbelief at their own success. They gallop in a body right around the boundaries of the farm, just to make absolutely sure no human beings are hiding anywhere.
Then they race back to the farm buildings to wipe out the last remaining traces of Jones's reign of terror.
This is a truly euphoric, utopian moment. They break open the harness room at the end of the stables. They take the bits, the nose rings, the heavy dog chains, the cruel knives Mr. Jones used for castrating the pigs and lambs, and they fling them all down the well.
They gather up the reins, the halters, the blinkers, the degrading nose bags, and they throw them onto a rubbish fire burning in the yard.
Snowball throws the ribbons into the fire too, reiterating that all animals should go naked as a sign of their freedom.
And Boxer, in this beautifully poignant, deeply symbolic gesture, fetches the small straw hat he wore in the summer to keep the flies out of his ears, and he flings it onto the fire with the rest.
He casts off the last vestige of human clothing, even one that provided him a small comfort.
It's an incredible cleansing of their history. Following this, Napoleon serves out a double ration of corn to everybody, with 2 biscuits for every dog.
They sing Beasts of England from end to end, 7 times right through, and they sleep that night better than they have ever slept in their lives.
The next morning they wake up, and the reality of their achievement finally sinks in. They tour the farmhouse, walking on tiptoe, marveling at the unbelievable luxury, the beds with feather mattresses, the looking glasses, the horsehair sofa, the Brussels carpet.
And they pass a unanimous resolution right there on the spot. The farmhouse should be preserved indefinitely as a museum. No animal must ever live there. It is a monument to what they have overthrown.
But right amidst this incredible triumph, the pigs reveal a secret that fundamentally alters the trajectory of their new society.
Yeah.
It turns out, for the past 3 months, the pigs have taught themselves to read and write from an old spelling book that had belonged to Jones's children and had been thrown on a rubbish heap.
I want to pause on the implications of that for a second. While the other animals were working and suffering under Jones, the pigs were secretly hoarding intellectual capital.
They have established a monopoly on literacy before the farm is even officially theirs.
That is the original sin of the New Republic right there.
Yeah.
The playing field was never equal from day one.
Snowball then takes a brush and white paints over Manor Farm on the top bar of the gate, and writes, Animal Farm.
Then, they explain to the others that they have managed to reduce the complex principles of animalism to 7 commandments. They paint these commandments on the tarred wall of the big barn in great white letters that can be read 30 yards away.
These commandments are meant to be an unalterable law by which all the animals on Animal Farm must live forever. They are the literal writing on the wall.
Number 1. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy.
Number 2. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend.
Number 3. No animal shall wear clothes.
Number 4. No animal shall sleep in a bed.
Number 5. No animal shall drink alcohol.
Number 6. No animal shall kill any other animal.
And number 7, the absolute bedrock. All animals are equal.
The text specifically notes that it was very neatly written, and it gives us these charming little details. The word friend was spelled F-R-E-I-N-D, and one of the S's was painted backwards.
But the spelling was otherwise correct. It gives it this authentic, grassroots feel. All the animals nod in complete agreement with these laws.
So the foundation is laid, the rules are set, and they prepare to head out to the hayfield to bring in the harvest. It feels like a perfect beginning.
It does.
But I have to jump in here because even in this early, seemingly pristine utopian stage, there is a massive glaring red flag. A literal theft happens on day 1.
You're referring to the mystery of the milk.
Yes. The cows haven't been milked in 24 hours. Their udders are almost bursting. The pigs managed to milk them using their trotters, producing 5 buckets of frothing, creamy milk.
Many of the animals look at these buckets with great interest, wondering what will happen to it. Under Jones, some of the milk was usually mixed into their daily mash. It was one of their few treats.
And how does Napoleon handle this? He places himself directly in front of the buckets and says, "Never mind the milk, comrades. That will be attended to. The harvest is more important."
He redirects their attention. He appeals to their work ethic. And when they come back in the evening, tired from a long day in the fields, the milk has mysteriously disappeared.
It is the very first crack in the foundation of equality. And we soon find out exactly where that milk went and where all the windfall apples from the orchard are going.
They aren't being shared. They're being brought to the harness room and mixed exclusively into the pig's daily mash.
Now, the other animals actually murmur about this. It's an obvious inequality. But Squealer is sent around to explain it to them.
And his explanation is an absolute masterclass in rhetorical manipulation. He doesn't say, "We are the leaders, we have the power, so we get the best food." That would cause a revolt.
No, he frames it as a burden. He says, "You do not imagine, I hope, that we pigs are doing this in a spirit of selfishness and privilege." He actually claims that many of the pigs deeply dislike milk and apples.
He frames their consumption of luxury goods as a profound sacrifice. He argues that pigs are brain workers. He says that the entire organization and management of the farm depend entirely on them.
And he claims that milk and apples contain substances that are scientifically proven to be absolutely necessary to the well-being of a pig. He says, "It is for your sake that we drink that milk and eat those apples."
And then when he has them confused with pseudoscience, he drops the ultimate trump card.
The fear of the boogeyman, the threat of the old regime.
Exactly. He cries out, "Do you know what would happen if we pigs failed in our duty?" Jones would come back. Yes, Jones would come back. Surely, comrades, there is no one among you who wants to see Jones come back.
It's a brilliant, terrifying psychological trap. Squealer skips from side to side, whisking his tail, looking pleadingly at them. If there is one single thing the animals are absolutely certain of, it's that they do not want Jones back.
So, faced with that existential threat, they agree without another word that the pig should have all the milk and the apples. The manipulation is so smooth, it slips right by their critical faculties.
But despite these quiet undercurrents of inequality, it's important to note that the early days of the Republic are genuinely incredibly successful.
They really are. The animals work harder and sweat more than they ever have in their lives, but it is a fundamentally different kind of work.
Every mouthful of food is an acute positive pleasure because it is truly their own food, produced by themselves and for themselves, not doled out to them by a grudging master.
They bring in the hay harvest 2 whole days faster than Jones and his men ever did. And it's the biggest harvest the farm has ever seen. There is zero wastage.
The hens and ducks, with their sharp eyes, gather up the very last stalks. Nobody steals a single mouthful. Nobody grumbles. The bickering and quarreling that used to be normal under Jones almost completely disappear.
We also see the characters really settle into their definitive archetypes during this period. Boxer, the huge cart horse, becomes the absolute admiration of everybody.
He seems like 3 horses in one. He makes a private arrangement with one of the cockerels to wake him half an hour earlier than anyone else, just so he can volunteer his labor where work is most needed before the regular day begins.
His answer to every single problem, every setback, is his new self-assigned motto: I will work harder.
Boxer is the beating heart of the farm. He represents the pure, uncorrupted, incredibly powerful, but intellectually vulnerable working class. He thinks his physical exertion can solve systemic issues.
But not everyone is quite so dedicated to the utopian vision. You have Molly, the white mare, who is famously bad at getting up in the mornings and has a habit of leaving work early, complaining of a mysterious stone in her hoof.
The cat vanishes for hours when there is actual work to be done, but magically reappears at mealtimes, purring so affectionately that it's almost impossible not to believe in her good intentions.
And then there's Benjamin, the donkey.
Yeah.
Benjamin's reaction to the revolution is fascinating. He is the oldest animal on the farm, and he's entirely unchanged by the rebellion.
He does his work in the exact same slow, obstinate way he had done it in Jones's time. He never shirks, but he never volunteers for extra work either.
When the others ask him if he isn't happier now that Jones is gone, he only ever gives one cryptic answer. Donkeys live a long time. None of you has ever seen a dead donkey.
Benjamin represents a very specific kind of cynical complicity. He sees the long game. He seems to intrinsically understand that while the faces of the leaders might change and the slogans might change, the fundamental reality of hard labor and oppression for the lower classes doesn't really shift.
But because he refuses to speak up, his silence allows the power grab to happen. He is the bystander who knows better but does nothing.
Now, structurally, the farm establishes a routine. Sunday is their day of rest and administration. It begins with a specific ceremony.
Snowball finds an old green tablecloth of Mrs. Jones's in the harness room and paints a white hoof and horn on it. This flag is hoisted up the flagstaff in the farmhouse garden every Sunday morning.
The symbolism is very deliberate. Snowball explains that the green represents the green fields of England, while the white hoof and horn signify the future republic of the animals, which will arise when the human race has been finally overthrown.
After the raising of the flag, all the animals troop into the big barn for a general assembly known as the meeting. Here, the work of the coming week is planned out, and resolutions are put forward and debated.
But a crucial power dynamic quickly becomes apparent. It is always the pigs who put forward the resolutions. The other animals understand how to vote, but they literally cannot think of any original resolutions of their own.
The pigs control the agenda, which means they control the outcomes. But within the pigs, there's a divide. This is where Snowball really shines as the progressive visionary.
He throws himself into forming numerous highly complex committees. He forms the Egg Production Committee for the hens, the Clean Tails League for the cows, the Wild Comrades Re-Education Committee, the object of which is to tame the rats and rabbits.
Most of these projects are absolute comical failures. The attempt to tame the wild creatures breaks down almost immediately. But the reading and writing classes that Snowball organizes are a massive success.
By the autumn, almost every animal on the farm is literate in some degree.
But the degrees of literacy vary wildly, and that disparity is crucial to the eventual collapse of their equality.
The pigs, as we know, can read and write perfectly. The dogs learn to read fairly well, but they are completely uninterested in reading anything except the 7 Commandments.
Muriel, the goat, can read somewhat better than the dogs, and she occasionally reads scraps of old newspaper to the others in the evenings.
But look at the working class. Boxer, despite all his strength and dedication, cannot get past the letter D. He will trace A, B, C, D in the dust with his great hoof, stare at the letters with his ears back, sometimes shaking his forelock, trying with all his might to remember what comes next, and he never succeeds.
Molly refuses to learn anything except the 6 letters that spell her own name, arranging them out of twigs and decorating them with flowers.
And the stupider animals, the sheep, the hens, and the ducks, cannot even learn the 7 Commandments by heart. So Snowball, trying to be pragmatic and solve a practical problem, does something that is ultimately fatal to their freedom.
He reduces the complex, nuanced 7 Commandments down to a single, oversimplified maxim: 4 legs good, 2 legs bad.
He tells them that this single sentence contains the essential principle of animalism. And at first, the birds object because it occurs to them that they have two legs.
But Snowball uses some incredibly dense, pseudoscientific logic to explain it away. He says that a bird's wing is an organ of propulsion, not manipulation, so it should be regarded as a leg. The distinguishing mark of man, he argues, is the hand, the instrument with which he does all his mischief.
The birds do not understand his long words at all, but they accept his explanation because he sounds authoritative.
And the sheep absolutely fall in love with this new maxim. They start bleeding it in the fields for hours on end. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. It becomes a physical manifestation of their ideology, but completely divorced from the original nuance.
Think about the concept of a thought-terminating cliché. That's exactly what this is. When complex political debate happens, you just chant the slogan to shut down the thinking process.
And while Snowball is busy with his committees and his maxims, Napoleon is taking a very, very different approach to power.
Napoleon takes no interest in Snowball's committees. He declares that the education of the young is far more important than anything that could be done for those who are already grown up.
So when the farm dogs, Jessie and Bluebell, both whelp and give birth to 9 sturdy puppies between them, Napoleon makes his move.
As soon as the puppies are weaned, he takes them away from their mothers, saying he will make himself responsible for their education.
He takes them up to a secluded loft that can only be reached by a ladder from the harness room. He keeps them in such total seclusion that the rest of the farm very quickly forgets they even exist.
While Snowball is lecturing in the barn and trying to build a transparent utopia, Napoleon is quietly, methodically building his own private, loyal security force in the shadows.
It's a chilling, brilliant tactical maneuver that will pay off horribly later. Meanwhile, the news of the rebellion is spreading far beyond Manor Farm.
Every day, Snowball and Napoleon send out flights of pigeons whose instructions are to mingle with the animals on neighboring farms, tell them the story of the rebellion, and teach them the tune of Beasts of England.
The human reaction is initially a mixture of terror and severe denial. Mr. Jones spends most of his time sitting in the tap room of the Red Lion at Willingdon, complaining to anyone who will listen of the monstrous injustice he has suffered.
The owners of the 2 adjoining farms, Foxwood and Pinchfield, are deeply frightened, though they try to hide it.
The neighboring farmers are interesting foils. You have Mr. Pilkington of Foxwood, who is an easygoing gentleman farmer who spends his time fishing or hunting according to the season. His farm is large, neglected, and old-fashioned.
And then you have Mr. Frederick of Pinchfield, a tough, shrewd man, perpetually involved in lawsuits and with a name for driving hard bargains. These 2 men hate each other, but they are united in their fear of Animal Farm.
At first, they pretend to laugh, to scorn the very idea of animals managing a farm by themselves. They say the whole thing will be over in a fortnight. They start rumors that the animals on Manor Farm are fighting constantly among themselves and are rapidly starving to death.
But when time passes and the farm clearly does not collapse from starvation, they change their tune.
They begin talking about the terrible wickedness that flourishes on Animal Farm. They invent wild rumors of cannibalism, of animals torturing one another with red-hot horseshoes, and of females being held in common.
They try to frame the rebellion not just as an economic failure, but as a gross violation of the fundamental laws of nature.
But the tune of Beasts of England is absolutely irrepressible. It is a contagion of hope. Blackbirds whistle it in the hedges, pigeons coo it in the elms, gets into the din of the smithies and the ringing of the church bells.
The humans secretly tremble when they hear it, feeling it's a terrifying prophecy of their own future doom. And that mounting fear finally culminates in direct, violent action.
Early in October, a flight of pigeons comes whirling through the air in a panic. Jones and all his men, accompanied by half a dozen others from Foxwood and Pinchfield, have entered the 5-barred gate and are coming up the cart track.
Jones is marching ahead, carrying a gun. They are coming to violently recapture the farm.
But the animals have been anticipating this exact moment. Snowball, who has been rigorously studying an old book of Julius Caesar's campaigns that he found in the farmhouse, is in charge of the defensive operations.
He gives his orders quickly, and within a couple of minutes, every animal is at his post. And Snowball runs a brilliant, highly disciplined tactical operation.
It is remarkably organized. Snowball launches a first line of attack with 35 pigeons flying overhead and muting upon the men, followed immediately by the geese rushing out and pecking viciously at the men's calves.
It's designed to create chaos and disorientation. Then, as the men beat the geese off with their sticks, Snowball launches the second line of attack.
Muriel, Benjamin, and all the sheep, led by Snowball himself, rush forward, prodding and butting the men from every side.
But the men, with their heavy sticks and hobnailed boots, are simply too physically strong, and Snowball suddenly orders a retreat.
This is the classic Caesar feint. The animals turn and flee through the gateway into the yard. The men give a shout of triumph. They think they've broken the enemy and won the day, so they rush recklessly after the retreating animals into the yard.
And that is exactly when Snowball springs the trap. The 3 horses, the 3 cows, and the rest of the pigs, who had been lying in perfect ambush in the cowshed, suddenly emerge in their rear, completely cutting off their escape route.
Snowball gives the signal for the charge and dashes straight for Jones. Jones sees him coming, raises his gun, and fires. The pellets score bloody streaks along Snowball's back, and one sheep drops dead.
But Snowball doesn't even hesitate. He flings his 200-pound body straight against Jones's legs, sending the farmer flying into a dung heap and knocking the gun out of his hands.
And Boxer is absolutely terrifying in this battle. He rears up on his hind legs and strikes out with his great iron-shod hoofs like a massive stallion.
His very first blow catches a stable lad from Foxwood right on the skull and drops him lifeless in the mud. The sheer brutal sight of this makes the other men drop their sticks in panic.
Within 5 minutes, the animals have completely routed them, chasing them out of the yard and goring and kicking them all the way down the road.
It is a decisive, monumental victory, which they officially named the Battle of the Cowshed, but amidst the adrenaline, it is also a deeply sobering moment.
Boxer is standing over the stable lad he struck, deeply distressed. He says, sorrowfully, that he forgot he was wearing iron shoes and that he has no wish to take life, not even human life.
And Snowball's response here is ice cold. It reveals a terrifying, pragmatic streak. While his own wounds are still dripping blood, he says, "No sentimentality, comrade. War is war. The only good human being is a dead one."
This exchange is vital. It raises a profound question about the normalization of violence in defense of a state. They celebrate their victory, they run up the flag, they sing Beasts of England, and they hold a solemn, respectful funeral for the sheep who was killed in action.
But then, almost immediately, they introduce a new concept to the farm: military decorations.
Yes, they create a brass medal called Animal Hero First Class, which is conferred on Snowball and Boxer right there on the spot to be worn on Sundays and holidays. And they create Animal Hero Second Class, which is conferred posthumously on the dead sheep.
And this is a subtle but structurally profound shift. Remember Old Major's fundamental warning: all animals are equal.
The sudden creation of a military hierarchy of medals and distinct classes of heroism introduces a brand new kind of structural inequality right under the guise of celebrating their sovereignty and unity.
The moment you create an animal hero first class, you have effectively destroyed the absolute truth that all animals are equal.
It sets the stage for the psychological manipulation that follows, because the euphoric unity of that battle does not last long at all. As winter comes on, the divide between Snowball and Napoleon deepens from a quiet friction into an open, bitter, systemic rivalry.
They disagree on absolutely everything. If one of them suggests sowing a bigger acreage with barley, the other is certain to demand a bigger acreage of oats.
If one says a certain field is perfect for cabbages, the other declares it is useless for anything except roots. And their methods of gaining and wielding power are completely opposite.
Snowball often wins over the majority at the Sunday meetings with his brilliant, passionate speeches, but Napoleon is far better at canvassing support for himself in the quiet times between meetings.
Napoleon is the ultimate master of backroom politics. He knows how to build a base. He is especially successful with the sheep.
Lately, the sheep have taken to bleating their slogan, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, at all hours of the day.
And Napoleon encourages them to interrupt the meetings with it, particularly at the exact crucial moments when Snowball is making his most persuasive points. It's the weaponization of ignorance to drown out debate.
The ultimate conflict between the two pigs arises over the windmill. Snowball has closely examined the farm and found a small knoll that is the highest point on the property. He declares it the absolutely perfect place for a windmill, which could operate a dynamo and supply the farm with electrical power.
Snowball has these grand utopian visions of infrastructure. He talks about electric lights, hot and cold water in every stall, an electric heater for the winter, circular saws, and milking machines.
He spends weeks drawing incredibly complex mechanical plans on the smooth wooden floor of an incubator shed, studying densely technical books he found in the house, like Every Man His Own Bricklayer and Electricity for Beginners. He claims that once it's built, the animals will only need to work a 3-day week.
Napoleon, however, opposes the windmill from the very start. He argues that the great urgent need of the moment is to increase food production, and that if they waste their time and energy dragging stones for a windmill, they will all simply starve to death.
The farm divides cleanly into two fiercely opposed factions. The political slogans they use feel so incredibly modern. Vote for Snowball and the 3-day week versus vote for Napoleon and the full manger.
It's visionary infrastructure versus immediate economic security. Only Benjamin refuses to take a side, cynically stating that windmill or no windmill, life will go on exactly as it always had, which is to say, badly.
The tension reaches an absolute breaking point at the Sunday meeting where the windmill plans are finally put to a vote. Snowball stands up and makes a passionate, brilliant appeal, painting a vivid picture of Animal Farm as it might be when the burden of sordid, back-breaking labor is finally lifted from the animal's shoulders.
He overcomes Napoleon's brief, grunting objections effortlessly. By the time he finishes, there is no doubt which way the vote will go. He is completely winning the crowd.
And just as Snowball finishes speaking and the crowd is ready to cheer, Napoleon stands up. He casts a very peculiar sidelong look at Snowball, and then he utters a high-pitched whimper that no one on the farm has ever heard him make before.
Immediately, in response to that sound, there is a terrible, deafening baying sound outside. 9 enormous dogs, wearing heavy brass-studded collars, bound into the barn. They dash straight for Snowball.
It is absolute terrifying chaos. Snowball only just springs from his place in the nick of time to escape their snapping jaws. He races across the pasture, the dogs close on his heels.
He runs for his life. One of the dogs almost bites his tail off before Snowball manages to slip through a hole in the hedge. And just like that, the intellectual leader of the revolution is gone, never to be seen on the farm again.
The other animals are frozen in silent terror. They creep back into the barn, and the mystery of where these monstrous dogs came from is instantly solved.
These are the cute little puppies Napoleon had taken away from their mothers, Jessie and Bluebell, and reared privately in the loft. They are now huge, fierce as wolves, and they keep close to Napoleon, wagging their tails to him in exactly the same subservient way the other dogs used to do to Mr. Jones.
If I can interject an analogy here, this is the classic hostile corporate takeover, but instead of using lawyers, Napoleon uses a private militarized security force.
That's exactly what it is.
He mounts the raised platform where Old Major stood to deliver his original speech of freedom. And Napoleon announces that from now on, the Sunday morning meetings, the core of their democratic process, will come to an immediate end. He says they are unnecessary and waste time.
In the future, all questions relating to the working of the farm will be settled by a special private committee of pigs, presided over by himself.
He dictates that they will still assemble on Sunday mornings to salute the flag, sing their anthem, and receive their orders for the week, but there will be absolutely no more debates.
4 young porkers in the front row actually try to protest, but the dogs sitting around Napoleon let out deep, menacing growls, and the pigs immediately fall silent.
Then, right on cue, the sheep break out into a tremendous bleating of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, which lasts for nearly a quarter of an hour and puts an absolute end to any chance of discussion. The mechanism of the coup is perfectly executed. Force silences dissent, and noise drowns out thought.
And this is where Squealer truly earns his keep. Squealer is the ultimate PR spin doctor. He is immediately sent around the farm to completely reshape reality and manage the fallout for the frightened animals.
His manipulation is exquisite. He tells them that Napoleon taking on this extra labor of leadership is not a pleasure, but a deep and heavy responsibility. He claims Napoleon believes more firmly than anyone that all animals are equal, but that the animals might make the wrong decisions if left to themselves. And where should we be then, he asks.
And he completely, brazenly rewrites the history they all just lived through regarding Snowball. Someone timidly points out that Snowball fought bravely at the Battle of the Cowshed. Squealer immediately dismisses it.
He says bravery is not enough. Loyalty and obedience are more important. He heavily hints that Snowball's part in the battle was much exaggerated.
And then he drops the ultimate psychological hammer again. One false strike and our enemies would be upon us. Surely, comrades, you do not want Jones back.
Once again, the sheer terror of the old regime silences any objection to the new tyranny. Boxer, who had been struggling deeply to process everything that just happened, eventually voices the general feeling by adopting a brand new maxim alongside, "I will work harder." He now repeats to himself, Napoleon is always right. He abdicates his own critical thinking to the leader.
And the ultimate cynical twist to this whole saga comes just a few weeks later. Napoleon nonchalantly announces that the windmill will be built after all. The animals are totally confused.
Squealer is sent around to explain this blatant contradiction. He tells the animals that Napoleon had never really opposed the windmill. In fact, he had advocated it in the first place. And the complex mechanical plans Snowball drew on the floor were actually stolen from Napoleon's private papers.
Squealer claims Napoleon's apparent vehement opposition to the windmill was simply a brilliant tactical maneuver, a ruse to get rid of Snowball, who was a dangerous character and a bad influence.
Squealer uses a word the animals don't understand, he repeats. Tactics, comrades, tactics, skipping around and whisking his tail with a merry laugh. The animals don't understand the word, but with the huge dogs growling beside Squealer, they accept this explanation without any further questions.
So the Republic is officially dead, and the dictatorship has firmly begun. And this leads us into a phase of the story that is really about the systematic collapse of objective truth and the institution of a reign of terror. It starts with seemingly subtle shifts.
The pigs suddenly move into the farmhouse and take up residence there.
Which is a direct, flagrant violation of one of the very first, most sacred resolutions passed after the rebellion. But Squealer's ready. He assures everyone that it is absolutely necessary for the pigs, who are the brains of the farm, to have a quiet place to work. It wouldn't do for the leader, Comrade Napoleon, to live in a mere sty like a commoner.
But Clover, the horse, remembers a specific written rule against this. She goes to the big barn and asks Muriel the goat to read the fourth commandment for her. And this scene is so profoundly chilling because it shows gaslighting happening in real time. Muriel spells it out. It says, "No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets."
Clover does not remember the commandment ever mentioning sheets. But because it is written right there on the wall, she assumes she must be mistaken.
Squealer, who happens to be passing by, stalks to explain. He says that a bed is just a place to sleep. A pile of straw in a stall is technically a bed. The rule, he insists, was strictly against sheets, which are a human invention.
He proudly states they have removed the sheets and sleep comfortably between blankets. And then, as always, he asks if they want Jones to come back because the pigs are too tired to carry out their duties.
It is textbook gaslighting. It's one thing to break a rule. It is a far more insidious thing to rewrite the rule and convince the victims that their own memory is faulty. And the pigs keep pushing the boundaries further.
Napoleon decides that Animal Farm will engage in trade with the neighboring human farms, ostensibly to obtain urgent materials they need for the windmill. He hires a human solicitor, a Mr. Whymper, to act as an intermediary.
This creates a deep, vague uneasiness among the animals. They all vaguely remember resolutions passed at that very first triumphant meeting against dealing with human beings, engaging in trade, or ever making use of money.
But Squealer expertly disarms them. He asks if they have any record of such resolutions. Is it written down anywhere? Since nothing was ever put on paper, the animals are convinced they must have dreamed it, or that it was lies invented by Snowball.
The psychological manipulation is working perfectly. They are dismantling the reality of the animals piece by piece, but then a massive physical disaster strikes.
After a full year of incredibly hard, back-breaking labor, building the windmill walls 3 feet thick, a violent November storm hits the farm. In the morning, they come out to find the windmill in absolute ruins. The stones they dragged with such effort are scattered everywhere.
The animals are utterly devastated. They stand looking at the ruins in mournful silence. But Napoleon does not mourn. He paces in silence, snuffs the ground intensely, and then stops. He points to the ruins and pronounces his verdict with absolute certainty. Snowball has done this thing. In sheer malignity, he claims, the traitor crept in under cover of night and destroyed their year's work.
He immediately pronounces the death sentence upon Snowball and offers a reward of apples to any animal who brings him to justice. He instantly turns a natural disaster into a political weapon.
Snowball becomes the invisible, omnipresent enemy. From that point on, whenever anything goes wrong on the farm, it is automatically blamed on Snowball. If a window is broken or a drain blocked, someone is certain to say Snowball did it in the night.
It reaches a level of mass hysteria. When the cows say their milk is missing, it's Snowball sneaking into their stalls. When the store shed key is lost, everyone is convinced Snowball threw it down the well even after the key is found under a sack of meal. Napoleon decrees a full investigation, snuffs the ground, and claims he can smell Snowball's tracks everywhere. He is creating a state of perpetual paranoia.
And this engineered paranoia builds to the absolute darkest, most horrifying turn in the entire book, the purges.
It begins against the backdrop of a severe food shortage. The winter is harsh, corn is scarce, and the potato crop was ruined by frost. Starvation genuinely stares them in the face. To get grain to survive, Napoleon accepts a contract through Mr. Whymper to sell 400 eggs a week to the humans.
Now, when the hens hear this, they raise a terrible outcry. They were getting their clutches ready for the spring sitting, and they call it outright murder to take the eggs away now. And for the very first time since Jones was expelled, there is an actual rebellion against Napoleon. It is the first labor strike.
Led by 3 young black Minorca pullets, the hens fly up to the rafters and lay their eggs up there, which then smash to pieces on the floor. Napoleon's reaction is swift and totally ruthless. He orders the hens' rations to be stopped completely and decrees that any animal giving so much as a single grain of corn to a hen will be punished by death.
And the dogs enforce this starvation. The hens hold out for 5 agonized days before finally capitulating and going back to their nesting boxes. 9 hens have died of starvation in the meantime. Their bodies are buried in the orchard, and Whymper is giving his eggs. It is a brutal, calculated suppression of labor.
But the terror escalates far beyond the hens. A few days later, Napoleon orders all the animals to assemble in the yard. He emerges from the farmhouse wearing 2 military medals he recently awarded to himself, surrounded by his 9 huge dogs, uttering growls that send shivers down the animals' spines.
He utters a high-pitched whimper, and the dogs bound forward. They seize 4 pigs by the ears, the exact same 4 young pigs who had dared to protest when the Sunday meetings were first abolished. The dogs drag them, squealing with pain and terror, to Napoleon's feet. The dogs have tasted blood and seem quite mad. 3 of them even fling themselves at Boxer.
But Boxer is simply too physically strong. He catches a dog in midair and pins him to the ground with his massive hoof. The dog shrieks for mercy and the others flee. Boxer looks at Napoleon to know whether he should crush the dog to death or let it go. Napoleon, looking angry, sharply orders Boxer to let the dog go.
That moment is so incredibly important for understanding authoritarianism. Boxer has the physical power to stop this entire purge right then and there. He could crush the dogs, but his mind is trapped. He defers completely to Napoleon's authority because he has deeply internalized the rule that Napoleon is always right.
Once the tumult dies down, Napoleon demands the 4 pigs confess their crimes. Without any further prompting, they confessed that they had been secretly in touch with Snowball, had collaborated with him in destroying the windmill, and had agreed to hand the farm over to Mr. Frederick. When they finished their confession, the dogs promptly tear their throats out.
It's horrific, and it doesn't stop. It becomes a cascade of insanity. The 3 ringleader hens come forward and confess that Snowball had appeared to them in a dream and incited them to disobey. They're immediately slaughtered. A goose comes forward and confesses to hiding 6 ears of corn and eating them in the night. A sheep confesses to urinating in the drinking pool, all supposedly urged by Snowball. 2 other sheep confess to murdering an old ram. They are all slain on the spot.
Think about the psychology here. Why do they confess to absurd crimes? Because the terror has broken their minds. The environment is so utterly devoid of logic and safety that they succumb to a sort of suicidal hysteria. The scene ends with a pile of corpses lying at Napoleon's feet, and the air heavy with a metallic smell of blood which had been unknown there since the expulsion of Jones. It is an image of absolute totalitarian terror. The remaining animals creep away in a body, deeply shaken and miserable. They don't know which is more shocking, the treachery of the animals who supposedly leagued with Snowball, or the cruel, bloody retribution they have just witnessed.
Clover's heartbreak in the aftermath of this slaughter is one of the most moving, tragic passages I've ever read. She looks down the hillside from the knoll, her eyes fill with tears. She thinks to herself that this scene of terror was absolutely not what they had aimed at when they set themselves years ago to overthrow the human race.
She had pictured a society of animals set free from hunger and the whip, all equal, each working according to his capacity, the strong protecting the weak. Instead, she realizes they had somehow come to a time when no one dared speak your mind, when fierce, growling dogs roamed everywhere, and when you had to stand by and watch your comrades torn to pieces.
Yet, and this is the tragedy of systemic control, even in her heartbreak, she has no thought of rebellion. She still believes they are better off than in the days of Jones. She resolves to remain faithful, to work hard, and to accept the leadership of Napoleon. But lacking the words to express her deep, complex sadness, she simply begins to sing Beasts of England.
The others gather around her and take it up, and they sing it 3 times over, very slowly and mournfully. But just as they finish the 3rd time, Squealer approaches, attended by 2 dogs. He announces that, by special decree of Comrade Napoleon, Beasts of England has been officially abolished. It is forbidden to sing it.
Muriel asks why. And Squealer's logic is so cold, so terrifyingly bureaucratic. He says Beasts of England was the song of the rebellion. But the rebellion is now completed. The execution of the traitors was the final, necessary act. The better society they longed for has been established, so the Song of Longing has no further purpose.
He is erasing the very language of revolution so they cannot even conceptualize rebelling against Napoleon. And in its place, a poet pig named Minimus composes a new song, praising Animal Farm. But as the text notes, neither the words nor the tune ever seem to come up to the stirring, emotional power of Beasts of England. The soul of the farm has been hollowed out.
And what happens when the animals try to process the killings rationally? Because they distinctly remember the sixth commandment. No animal shall kill any other animal.
Just like with the beds, Clover asks Muriel to read the commandment on the tarred wall. And it now reads, "No animal shall kill any other animal without cause." Once again, the animals see that the commandment has not technically been violated, because clearly in their manipulated minds, there was good reason for killing the traitors. The manipulation of their collective memory is totally complete.
Which brings us to a phase of the story that is just incredibly painful to read. The betrayal of the workers.
It centers largely around Boxer, but it involves the entire economy of the farm. The animals are working harder than ever to rebuild the windmill, this time with walls twice as thick. And they're also preparing for an imminent human attack, because relations with the neighboring farms have severely deteriorated.
Napoleon plays a very dangerous, cynical political game here. He negotiates to sell a pile of seasoned timber to either Mr. Pilkington or Mr. Frederick. He constantly plays them off against each other to drive up the price. When he leans toward Pilkington, rumors spread that Frederick is planning an armed attack. When he leans toward Frederick, the rumors reverse and Pilkington becomes the villain.
Ultimately, he demands payment in real 5-pound notes and sells the timber to Mr. Frederick. But Frederick, the shrewd human businessman, plays a masterstroke of deceit. He pays for the timber with forged banknotes. As soon as the pigs realize the money is worthless, Frederick and his men launch their attack.
This is the Battle of the Windmill, and it is vastly more brutal than the Battle of the Cowshed. 15 men with half a dozen guns between them open fire as soon as they get within 50 yards. The animals are driven back into the buildings, and then Frederick's men drill a hole in the base of the newly completed windmill, pack it with blasting powder, and blow the entire massive structure to pieces. 2 years of agonizing labor, literally vaporized.
The sight of their destroyed labor gives the animals a surge of absolute, desperate, blinding courage. They charge out, completely ignoring the gunfire. It is a savage, bitter, chaotic battle. A cow, 3 sheep, and 2 geese are killed outright. Nearly everyone is wounded. Boxer has a split hoof and a dozen pellets lodged in his hind leg. They eventually manage to drive the men off the farm, but it's a deeply hollow, incredibly bloody victory.
They are exhausted and bleeding. Yet when they hear a gun firing from the farmhouse, Boxer asks what it's for. Squealer, who was notably absent during the actual fighting, comes skipping toward them and says it's to celebrate their glorious victory. Boxer points out that they've destroyed the windmill, but Squealer spins it into a triumph. What matter? We will build another windmill. We will build 6 windmills if we feel like it. The enemy was on our soil, and we have won every inch of it back again.
It's the rhetoric of the ultimate state victory overriding the tangible, devastating physical losses of the citizens. The state is victorious, even if the citizens are bleeding to death. And following this battle, the pigs discover a case of whiskey in the cellars of the farmhouse.
The next morning, there's a panic rumor that Napoleon is dying. Squealer announces that Snowball had somehow poisoned Napoleon's food, and as his last solemn act, Napoleon decrees the drinking of alcohol is to be punished by death. But by the evening, Napoleon feels much better. And shortly after, he orders Whymper to purchase some booklets on brewing and distilling.
And, predictably, when Muriel reads the 5th commandment a few days later, it has been amended. It now says, "No animal shall drink alcohol to excess." The rules continuously warp to accommodate the vices of the leadership.
But the real profound tragedy of this section is Boxer. Despite his split hoof and his obviously failing strength, he pushes on relentlessly. His only remaining ambition in life is to see the windmill well underway before he reaches the retiring age. When the laws of Animal Farm were first formulated, the retiring age for horses was set at 12, with a liberal pension of corn and hay. Boxer's 12th birthday is approaching in the late summer.
The winter is brutally cold. Food is incredibly short, except, of course, for the pigs and the dogs, whose rations are never reduced. Squealer explains that a too rigid equality in rations would be contrary to the core principles of animalism. He stands there reading endless lists of figures, proving they have more oats, more hay, and more turnips than in Jones's day. And the animals, who are exhausted and have largely forgotten what it was really like under Jones, believe him.
Boxer's dedication never wavers, but his body finally does. One late summer evening, word goes frantically around the farm that Boxer has fallen. He went out alone to drag a massive load of stone to the windmill, and he collapsed. Clover and Benjamin rushed to him. Boxer is lying on his side, his neck stretched out, unable to even raise his head. His eyes are glazed, his sides are matted with sweat. A thin stream of blood trickles from his mouth.
He tells Clover in a weak voice, "It is my lung." But he adds that it doesn't matter. He thinks they have enough stone to finish the windmill without him, and he genuinely looks forward to his retirement in the corner of the big pasture. Squealer arrives, full of outward sympathy, and announces that Comrade Napoleon has made special arrangements to send Boxer to be treated in the human hospital at Willingdon.
For the next 2 days, Clover and Benjamin nurse Boxer in his stall. But in the middle of the day, when the animals are out at work under the supervision of a pig, a closed van drawn by 2 horses arrives. Benjamin, the cynical donkey who rarely shows any emotion, comes galloping to the animals, braying at the absolute top of his voice, "Quick, quick, they're taking Boxer away!"
All the animals drop their work and rush to the yard. They crowd around the van, cheerfully saying, "Goodbye, Boxer." But Benjamin is frantic. He asks them if they are absolute fools. He reads the lettering on the side of the closed van. "Alfred Simmons, horse slaughterer and glue boiler, Willingdon, dealer in hides and bone meal."
He shouts, "They are taking Boxer to the knackers!" The animals raise a collective cry of horror. Clover tries to stop the van, screaming to Boxer to get out. Boxer's face appears at the small window at the back. He doesn't quite understand at first, but then he hears Clover, and suddenly there is the terrible sound of a tremendous drumming of hoofs from inside the van.
He is desperately trying to kick his way out. In the old days, a few kicks from Boxer's immense hoofs would have smashed the van to matchwood, but his strength has completely left him. The drumming grows fainter and eventually dies away. The van drives off down the road, and Boxer is never seen again.
It is the ultimate sickening betrayal. As a reader, processing this is just devastating. The pigs have taken their most loyal, hardest-working citizen, a creature who literally broke his body, building their infrastructure, who defended them in battle, who believed in them implicitly, and they sold his body to a human being to be boiled down for glue.
It represents the complete and total death of the original vision of animalism. Remember, Old Major explicitly warned Boxer in Chapter 1 that the day his muscles lost their power, Jones would sell him to the knacker. The profound, sickening irony is that it wasn't Jones who did it. It was the leaders of his own revolution. The pigs have enacted the exact ultimate cruelty they originally rebelled against. They have monetized his death.
And Squealer's cover-up of this is just stomach-churning. 3 days later, he announces that Boxer died in the hospital at Willingdon, receiving every attention a horse could possibly have. He claims he was present during Boxer's last hours, that it was the most affecting sight he had ever seen, and that Boxer died whispering, "Long live Comrade Napoleon."
And as for the van, Squealer explains with an indignant theatrical whisk of his tail that it was all a simple, foolish rumor. The van had previously been the property of the knacker and had been bought by the veterinary surgeon, who hadn't yet painted the old name out. He looks at them with reproach and asks if they really believe their beloved leader, Comrade Napoleon, would do such a horrific thing.
And because they want to believe it, the animals' doubts disappear. Their sorrow is tempered by the comforting thought that he died happy and well cared for. And then Orwell delivers the final, utterly brutal twist of the knife. On the day appointed for a memorial banquet for Boxer, a grocer's van delivers a large wooden crate to the farmhouse. That night, there is uproarious singing, followed by a violent quarrel, and the pigs don't wake up until noon the next day. The word quietly goes round that from somewhere or other, the pigs had acquired the money to buy themselves another case of whiskey.
They literally drank the blood of their comrade. They sold Boxer's life, his body, to a glue boiler for the exact price of a case of alcohol. It is the absolute pinnacle of political cynicism.
Which brings us to the final transformation. Years pass, the seasons come and go, the short animal lives flee by. Most of the animals who actually remember the rebellion are dead. Only Clover, Benjamin, Moses the Raven, and a number of the very oldest pigs are left.
The farm itself is far more prosperous now. It has been enlarged by purchasing fields from Mr. Pilkington. The windmill has been completed, though it is not used for generating electrical power to make the animals' lives easier, as Snowball promised. Instead, it is used for milling corn, which brings in a handsome money profit.
The farm has grown richer, but the animals themselves are no richer, except of course for the pigs and the dogs. Squealer explains this away by saying there is endless, vital work in the supervision and organization of the farm. He says the pigs expend enormous labor on files, reports, minutes, and memoranda, which are large sheets of paper covered with writing and then immediately burnt in the furnace. This, Squealer insists, is of the absolute highest importance for the welfare of the farm.
It's the ultimate bureaucratic grift. Producing nothing, consuming everything, and justifying it with paperwork. Yet, amazingly, despite their hard lives, the animals never give up hope. They still feel a deep sense of honor and privilege in being members of Animal Farm. They still believe in Old Major's Republic of the Animals. They believe that they are not like other animals in England if they go hungry. It is not from feeding tyrannical humans. They still cling to the belief that all animals are equal.
But then, early one summer, Squealer takes the sheep out to a piece of waste ground overgrown with birch sapling. He keeps them there for a whole week, claiming he's teaching them a new song.
And shortly after they return, on a pleasant evening when the animals have finished work, the terrifying climax occurs. A terrified, piercing neighing from a horse sounds from the yard. It's Clover. The animals rush out and they freeze when they see what she saw.
It's a pig walking on his hind legs.
Yes, it is Squealer. He is walking a little clumsily, as he isn't quite used to supporting his massive bulk in that position, but he is maintaining perfect balance across the yard. And a moment later, out comes a long file of pigs from the farmhouse, all walking on two legs. Some better than others, but all making their way around the yard successfully.
And finally, out comes Napoleon himself, majestically upright, casting haughty glances from side to side, with his dogs gamboling around him, and he carries a whip in his trotter.
There's a deadly heavy silence. The animals are amazed, terrified. For a moment, despite their ingrained fear of the dogs, they might have actually uttered some word of protest. The sheer violation of nature might have sparked a second rebellion. But just at that exact moment, as if on a signal, all the sheep burst out into a tremendous, deafening bleating.
4 legs good, 2 legs better, 4 legs good, 2 legs better.
It goes on for 5 straight minutes without a pause. It completely puts an end to any chance of discussion or protest. By the time the sheep quiets down, the pigs have marched back into the farmhouse.
Benjamin, the old donkey, feels a nose nuzzling his shoulder. It's Clover. Her old eyes are dimmer than ever. Without saying anything, she gently leads him to the end of the big barn where the 7 commandments were written. She says her sight is failing, and she asks him if the commandments are the same as they used to be.
For once, Benjamin breaks his strict rule of non-interference and reads what is written on the wall to her. There is nothing there now except a single commandment. It runs, "All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others."
Some animals are more equal than others. That is one of the most famous, devastating, paradigm-shifting lines in all of literature. It is the ultimate paradox. It uses the language of equality to enshrine absolute tyranny. It is the final destruction of meaning.
After that, the veil is completely lifted. It does not seem strange when the pigs who supervise the work start carrying whips in their trotters. It doesn't seem strange when they buy a wireless set, arrange to install a telephone, and take out subscriptions to human newspapers. It doesn't seem strange when Napoleon is seen strolling in the farmhouse garden with a pipe in his mouth, or when the pigs take Mr. Jones's clothes out of the wardrobes and put them on.
The physical transformation is complete, and it culminates in a meeting with men. A deputation of neighboring human farmers is invited to make a tour of inspection of the farm. That evening, loud voices and bursts of laughter come from the farmhouse. The animals, driven by a terrible curiosity, creep up to the dining room window and look inside.
They see half a dozen farmers and half a dozen eminent pigs sitting around the long table. Napoleon is at the head. They are playing cards and drinking beer. The atmosphere is totally convivial. Mr. Pilkington of Foxwood stands up, his mug in his hand, to propose a toast.
His speech is incredibly revealing of the underlying economic reality. He says he is profoundly happy that the long period of misunderstanding is at an end. He praises the pigs for their discipline and orderliness. He observes that the lower animals on Animal Farm do more work and receive less food than any animals in the county. He says he intends to introduce these exact, rigorous features on his own farm.
And then Pilkington delivers his carefully prepared witticism that sets the entire table in a roar of laughter. If you have your lower animals to contend with, he says, we have our lower classes.
That shared laughter between the human capitalists and the pig dictators is chilling. It strips away all the ideological pretense. It shows that their fundamental struggles, their desperate need to extract labor and maintain control over the working class, are exactly the same, regardless of what they call their political systems.
Napoleon responds to the toast. He, too, is happy the misunderstandings are over, and he announces some final changes to prove his allegiance to the humans. The animals will no longer address each other as comrade. The custom of marching past Old Major's skull is suppressed, and the skull is buried. The white hoof and horn are removed from the green flag.
And then the final symbolic change. The name Animal Farm is officially abolished. Henceforward, the farm is to be known as the Manor Farm, which Napoleon states he believes is its correct and original name.
The wheel has turned completely full circle. The pigs haven't just replaced Mr. Jones. They have explicitly adopted his title, his clothes, his methods of extraction, and his social associates. They're indistinguishable from the regime they violently overthrew.
As the animals watch from the window, a violent argument suddenly breaks out over the card game because Napoleon and Pilkington have each played an ace of spades simultaneously. The voices are shouting, the faces are red and angry, and as the animals look from pig to man and from man to pig and from pig to man again, they find that it is already impossible to say which is which.
That final haunting image, the seamless blending of the oppressor and the supposed liberator, is the tragic culmination of the narrative. The physical violence was brutal, the executions were horrific. But the true, lasting horror of the book was the slow, methodical erasure of truth and memory.
Exactly. If you look back at how smoothly and quietly these changes happened, it wasn't just the snarling dogs that controlled the farm. It was Squealer. It was the manipulation of memory. It was the subtle shifting of words on the side of a barn. When you control the past and the present, when you have the power to define what a bed is or what without cause means or what equality means, you literally control reality itself.
And that leads to a profound final thought for us to mull over today. The original animals, those who heard Old Major's speech, who felt the fire of beasts of England and fought in the rebellion, were driven by a genuine, heartfelt vision of a better, fairer world. But look at the next generation of animals on Manor Farm, like the 3 new horses they acquired, who are fine, upstanding beasts, but very stupid, who accept everything they are told without question. They only know this new, terrifying reality.
Which raises the ultimate haunting question. If the pigs became entirely indistinguishable from the humans they originally overthrew, what does that mean for the future of Manor Farm? Because oppression always breeds resentment. Is another rebellion inevitable? And if it is it doomed to end exactly the same way, in an endless, tragic cycle where the oppressed merely learn how to become the oppressors, guided by the next generation of pigs who know how to read the rules and manipulate the masses?
It is a dark, cyclical view of history, but one that the text absolutely demands we consider, especially when we look at the world around us.
It really is a lot to think about. It makes you want to go check the fine print on every contract, every political speech, and every rule in your life, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive here on the Bibliophile channel. It has been an incredible journey. Remember, one last time, to like this video, leave us a comment below with your own takeaways. Do you think the cycle can ever be broken? And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into classic literature. Until next time, keep reading, stay sharp, and always keep questioning what's written on the wall.